speaking of movers, shakers, and playmakers, one of the dynamic stars of Sports Talk Mississippi, the one and only Michael Borkey. Good morning, Michael. How are you, sir?
I'm so glad, Paul, we finally get to talk. And you and I need to sit down longer one of these days, because yesterday, as fun as this event is, I'm really bothered by one thing that happened yesterday. The commissioner of the SEC, Greg Sankey, who I think is a brilliant guy. I mean, if you remember back in 2020, without him, they're probably not playing college football at all. And that was a wild success. So a lot of good things have happened because of Greg Sankey. But he is killing me with this idea that the United States Congress, of all bodies of incompetent people, can save college football. And so you and I need to talk about this more one of these days, because every time he says that, I cringe, because, I mean, do you have any faith in that body to do their jobs correctly? And now we're going to ask them to step out of their lane and fix college football.
Has Greg Sankey ever heard of two things, Amtrak and the United States Post Office?
Apparently not.
It's all you got to tell him right there. I mean, if he says that, it's a lost cause. But how is Congress going to step in and save college football?
I don't understand. What he's hoping for is national legislation on NIL, which sounds good in theory. So every state operates under the same law. That sounds great in theory. But you know how this works. This process takes years. Everybody has their own agendas and ideas, and they'll have committee meetings and more committee meetings. Then it'll come to a vote, and the vote will pass. If it does come to a vote at all, it's going to be a disaster. And so relying on them to that's crazy to me. And every interview he's done here, he's mentioned Congress, and every time I think you are smarter than this.
First of all, I can feel your pain on this one, because number one, Congress did not create this nightmare. They created this nightmare. Yes. And if Congress is going to fix it somewhere down the line, we're all going to suffer from that. And there's no reason for Mr. Sankey to set forth rules for them to fix this. Why the hell would he want to pass the ball to Congress?
Quite frankly, I think it's a couple of things. Because college sports leadership, the way it's structured, Paul, college sports is so much fun, and we love it so much, and it's structured terribly. So you've got people in these decision-making rooms, some of which come from conferences like the SEC with all the money, all the attention and everything. And then others will be like university presidents from High Point College. And there's such a dramatic disconnect between the people like here at SEC Media Days and people from these really small schools who don't care about sports at all. So nothing gets done. And when it does get done, it doesn't make sense for leagues like this one. If you're reading between the lines also, something very interesting he mentioned yesterday, where he said he doesn't expect this Congress to do anything, but after the election year, he thinks that it might be a little bit easier. Well, you talk about it on your show all the time. What is coming in midterms this fall? A red wave, right? At least that's what every model says is going to happen. He was saying he thinks that there's a better chance with more Republicans in Congress to get college football stuff moving forward. You got to read between the lines a little bit, but that's what he was saying yesterday. He expects the red wave to be more beneficial for their effort.
It's got to be signed by a blue president, so that's something that's going to be hard to do. Effectively, though, this NIL has changed things so rapidly. Envision this. I was thinking about this yesterday, Michael. If minor leagues in baseball, minor leagues had an announcement that came out and said, we're selling our minor leagues now to the NCAA, and minor leagues will be under the NCAA, and most of these kids maybe want to go back to college and whatever, and it'll be part of the NCAA. The problem with that would be, wait a minute, we as taxpayers are funding the minor leagues. Right now in college, football is so big. It is a professional, nothing more than a minor league for the NFL. And we are funding that minor league.
And you know, it's funny, you mentioned minor leaguers last night. The commissioner of Major League Baseball said last night that minor leaguers are getting paid a livable wage. Well, they get about 10. Certain minor leaguers with big signing bonuses are okay, but most of them make $10,000-$15,000 a year. Tell me if you can live off of that. But back to your point about the NCAA, you're right. And what needs to be prevented is making changes in football that impact sports like baseball, because even in Mississippi, baseball is not a quote-unquote money sport. Now, baseball can actually make a little money here, or at least they break even. Most baseball programs, softball, volleyball, soccer, rifle, golf, they all lose money across the country. But there's value in those programs existing because young people get to go to school for free, which is an awesome thing. So they've got to navigate changing the landscape and going through NIL and all that stuff. But to me, they've got to make sure that these non-revenue sports continue to exist, because there are thousands and thousands of young people that get school for free. And if you professionalize college sports, they are all gone. Opportunities disappear.
The terminology of a professional is if you get paid for what you're doing. So I think we're beyond that one. Who's up today? And by the way, what was your analysis of Mike Leach yesterday and his talk?
I respect Mike Lee. All these coaches come up on this stage with a prepared statement. Sam Pittman just went right before I came on with you, the Arkansas head coach, and he talked for about 10 minutes or so about his team and all that stuff before questions. Mike Leach walks up on stage and says, "Thanks. Y'all got any questions?"
And then talks about the best thing on Netflix. So that was that was good.
He was very Mike Leach yesterday, although he's real confident in his quarterback. I mean, he dropped a little nugget on our show yesterday that he thinks that Will Rogers will leave Mississippi State, knock on wood, State fans, barring injury, as the NCAA's all-time leading passer. I mean, that you don't get stuff like that from Mike Leach very often. That was a very confident Mike Leach yesterday about his quarterback.
To the contrary, that quarterback situation the day before, as far as Lane Kiffin, is still a question mark.
It is, and we won't get an answer for a while, although Lane Kiffin famously in situations like this says nothing. I mean, he really doesn't answer questions. He doesn't give anything away. But he did say something interesting with Richard a couple of days ago. He said that they don't know who the quarterback's going to be. They're going to have a true battle in training camp, but they want to name a starter soon. They want to have a starting quarterback going into week one. So there have been people around here talking about, a 2-quarterback system, or letting them play a few games because the schedule sets up well, allowing them to kind of work it out during the season. That's not what Lane Kiffin wants. He said that pretty clearly a couple of days ago. I want a starter. I want a guy that when Troy comes to Oxford in week one, that is our quarterback, and he takes all the snaps, and we push forward that way. That was at least something that Lane gave you.
And you can understand that, too, with the transfer portals being such a big part of this. There are so many unknowns. But, all right, my man, who's up on the guest list today that we know about?
So far, we are going to talk to Ian Fitzsimmons of ESPN Radio, Tom Hart, who is a play-by-play broadcaster for ESPN. We had a conversation with Mississippi State's a couple of Mississippi State players, one of which we didn't actually play on the show yesterday, just ran out of time. We'll visit with him. David Cutcliffe, the head of officials of the SEC. Our show lineup is stacked today, Paul. So
that is good.
Really
looking forward to it. Looking forward to it on radio and on TV, Channel 70, and of course at C-Spire, and of course SuperTalk TV. Have you guys had a chance to go out after the show and have any good meals there?
Yeah, we ate a steak last night, and also this thick-cut bacon, Paul. That was about that thick. It was incredible. At Kevin Rathbun's last night. That was a good time. It was Richard's recommendation, and I don't usually like to do what Richard wants to do, but he nailed that last night. Yeah,
he got it. I envy you. Always good talking to you, Michael. Appreciate it, sir.
Of course. We need to sit down and talk politics and sports sometime.
Well, we'll get you on the program as a guest, and we can knock this thing over. We'll take sports through politics. I think it'll be a great idea.
Can't wait.
We'll book it. We'll book it. Y'all be careful on the way home, man. Final segment.